The, phys- the physical brain continues to be probed, and electromagnetism continues to be thought of as the carrier of signals, while all along new wave research, new wave research in physics has virtually established the fact that there is a second reality that operates totally independently of any brain electromagnetic arrangement. In fact, the old reality pales in importance if the basic elements of the second reality are grasped. This is a direct quote from Ingo Swann. He published it in Everybody's Guide to Natural ESP. Do you believe we're living within two different separate realities? If you do, give us a call because the show is starting right now. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Kelley Laughlin, and this is a live call-in show that happens every single week on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. And if you'd like to call us, you can at 1-512-991-9242 or through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And today, my special guest is Damian. Hi, Damian. How are you?
Hello, Kelley. I am fantastic. How are you going?
I'm great. I've been looking forward to doing the show with you. So I want to introduce you to our viewers, and we'll get into who you are in a minute here. But I do have something I want to do first, and we always start out the show with last week's results of We Want the Truth, or the WWTT segment. And last week, we asked you, what is Bigfoot really hiding? And here are our favorite answers. Number 3 from Belter GLJ. I don't know how to pronounce that. Why is Bigfoot hiding? They don't want to deal with evangelists. I don't either. I would hide too. Number 2 from Phil Armstrong. Bigfoot is hiding because he's seen the Planet of the Apes and he knows he'll end up stuffed and mounted in a museum just like Dodge. And the number 1 answer from Caps Lock Pundit. Bigfoot is hiding in plain sight as J-Mike. J-Mike does look a little bit like Bigfoot, touche. The prompt for this week is invent a curse. Damian, can you think of any curses that you'd like to invent?
Yes. May your mouse clicks respond at least half a second after you press the button.
That would be annoying.
That'd just be so annoying. Or even moving, like half a second after you move, then you see the cursor. That's just, yeah. But constantly. And just to make it worse, like variable timing. So one time it'd be like a half second delay, then sometimes like 3/4 of a second delay, then sometimes like 1/4 of a second delay, just to really mess with you.
And sometimes it would just work, like every 100th time, right?
Nailed it on the head.
All right, I can't wait to see what our audience comes up with. So comment on the video, comment below, not in the YouTube chat. And your comment may be read on next week's show. So, all right. And I promised we'd get to who you are. So I know you have a podcast, and I want you to tell us all about it. So what do you do?
All right. As well, look, Kelley, by day, I am a mild-mannered IT person. Then by night, so I have a podcast called the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad Podcast. Because I'm tall, I come across as friendly. I'm a middle-aged dad, and somehow, importantly, I'm also an atheist. I don't believe in the existence of deities, and I think though I used to be a young Earth creationist at one point in my life, and then I suppose a crisis of faith helped me to realize that belief isn't all that it's cracked up to be. And so, yes, I use my voice to present a rational view of atheism and the claims of religions in general. but I also do discuss, being a dad and, stuff in general as well, whatever takes my fancy.
What you said that you used to be a young Earth creationist. What was it that kind of convinced you that you were wrong?
Mostly that the claims of young Earth creationism couldn't be backed up scientifically. I mean, basically, they're only religious claims. I never saw a claim by a secular scientist that backed up anything close to, how can I say that backed up anything close to,
to a 6,000-year-old
saying. And basically, the way that young Earth creationists made their case was by starting off with the butchered philosophy, and then arriving at this weird conclusion that contradicts all the evidence that we have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you end up studying any of the science behind the age of the Earth or anything like that?
I did actually do a semester of astronomy in university, admittedly for some easy credits. And one thing that tipped me from young Earth to old Earth was the evidence for the Big Bang Theory. The evidence of the Big Bang Theory was just overwhelming, in that trying to sustain at least a young universe, creationism, was nigh on impossible. At that stage, I was still anti-evolution. However, I think at that stage, the seeds for the seeds to doubt biblical literalism were sown. However, I was still very fundamentalist in my, I suppose morally fundamentalist in my understanding of society and culture and all that.
Yeah, I obviously do a little bit of science, and I'm a geologist, but I have talked. Yeah, cool, thanks. Just don't take it for granted. I've talked to young Earth creationists, and I've talked to about uranium thorium dating, which is how we can date igneous rocks. And I've actually been told that, or been asked, how do I know that basically the laws of physics have been constant throughout time? Was that something that you would have made a stand on, that the laws of physics could have changed?
Not necessarily. I probably would have gone through the same data, different interpretation mindset. Thinking that the laws of physics have changed was probably a little bit of a stretch. But yeah, so it was more like the arguments that come to mind for the anti-evolution perspective was things like, there's not enough salt in the oceans, there's not enough moon dust, the rings of Saturn look too bright, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So was it a gradual change, or did you have what? I've talked to people who deconverted, and I've heard people say it took me years to get there, and I've heard other people say no.
Okay. So I suppose for my deconversion, it was actually a mental health crisis that kind of facilitated that. And what I realized was that the faith I had was imparted to me by my pastors. And I kind of realized that if I was going to be honest about my belief and about my faith, it had to be my faith. It had to be something I understood for myself as honestly as I could. So I allowed myself to question, does God exist? What is God? What can we know about God? And I eventually realized that the presupposition that God exists underpinned a lot of the religious arguments. But once you take away that presupposition that God exists and that you try to independently prove it, So in short, I kind of realized that every argument for the existence of God relied on the presupposition that God exists.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas trying to use an independent data set and a independent methodology to arrive at the conclusion that God exists, I couldn't do it. I just could not find a a positive way that relied on an intellectually honest methodology to get to God exists. And so eventually I realized that if the only place that God exists is in my head, then God doesn't exist out of my head. And if he doesn't exist outside of my head, he doesn't exist.
Except in other people's heads.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, for example, if Bigfoot only exists in people's heads, then does Bigfoot really exist? If Smurfs only exist in people's heads, then do they really exist?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Zeus only exists in people's heads, does Zeus really exist?
So, how long ago did you start your podcast, and what was the goal you were trying to achieve with it when you started it?
How long? It's been going for about 2.5 years now. And I suppose it really picked up during COVID times when, I didn't really have much to do, so to speak. And I think for me, the biggest thing is that it's a creative outlet. It's a way for me to put my thoughts about religion and life, on paper, and then for me to be able to express them. And in a way, I think the goal of it is sort of like what the ACA does, is to present a positive framework of rational atheism, to show that there are good counters to religious arguments, and that to anyone who wants to question their faith, or someone whose faith is in the balance, or so also someone who just wants like a different view on things, then hopefully my silky smooth Australian voice will help lend some credence to the arguments that religion isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
No, I know we had talked a little bit before the show, and the Ali conversion, it just happened.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what her first name is, and it's
Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Yes.
I know that that had some special interest for you. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah. Look, I would. And partly because I was actually at church last Sunday, and the pastor actually brought it up as a point. And I thought that is interesting. Like, apparently her essay on why I am a Christian, reached this pastor in Melbourne, Australia. But no, I first came across Ayaan Hirsi Ali back when I was a fundamentalist. She was I came across her because she was like an anti-Islamic spokesperson. And, in the aftermath of 9/11 and multiple terrorist attacks, her being an African ex-Muslim, kind of carry some weight. And so recently, she basically, she was an ex-Muslim, became an atheist, and then in the last week or two, she penned an essay titled "Why I Am a Christian," kind of as a response to Bertrand Russell's famous essay "Why I'm Not a Christian." And so I've read her essay a couple of times. It's publicly available if you did want to read it. And the biggest takeaway I found was that she became a Christian more for cultural reasons rather than spiritual reasons. Like, she didn't mention anything about, sin or the existence of deities or, needing the atoning blood of Christ. Basically, her conversion was partly because of her belief that the West is built on Judeo-Christian values, which are worth fighting for. So, so I suppose in her mind, if she becomes a Christian, then she is upholding Judeo-Christian values. And that leads me to the question, what are Judeo-Christian values exactly? I'm still trying to work out what they are. And the other part of the other takeaway I got was that one of the reasons she converted to Christianity was because, and she actually said this, atheism can't answer the question, what is the purpose of life? Well, it's like, not, I have to find the exact quote, but yeah, she basically said that atheism doesn't answer the big question. What is? Let me see if I can find the quote, because I took a photo of it on the screen as the pastor presented it. So I'm just going to very quickly flick through my. Here we go. Atheism failed to answer a simple question: what is the meaning and purpose of life? And I was, in my mind, I was face palming because atheism isn't really meant to answer that question. It's just
I'm wondering how Christianity answers that question truthfully too. So I'm not. Yeah, it seems like
indeed. But I notice that that question, that point gets raised by a Christian apologist. What, as an atheist, what is the purpose of your life? So like atheism, like trying to say that atheism is wrong because it doesn't give you an answer to question and purpose is like saying golf is evil because you can't sweep the floor with your putter. Something like that. It's like you can't open a doorknob with a hammer. Does that make power tools evil or something?
Yeah, I get that. It seemed to me that. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say. So I suppose the thing that irks me is that Christians are taking the fact that Ayaan Hirsi Ali has essentially become a cultural Christian as proof that Christianity is the one true faith. That, look, here is one of yours that's come over to our side. Maybe there's something about this. And so I posted on my Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it now, that Ayaan Hirsi Ali has become the new Anthony Flew. Because I remember for years, Anthony Flew was held up as this example of, someone who discovered the truth of God. And, he even wrote a book called There Is No God, but with no crossed out. And there is, But what they don't realize is that Anthony Flew didn't really become a, young earth creationist/fundamentalist. He essentially became a deist in that he believed in the existence of an intelligence that assumes its own existence, but it's really about it. He didn't become a Bible thumping evangelical. He just became a deist who enjoys church or something like that.
I just had a evangelical friend of mine sent me like 3 videos in a row of people who said they were atheists and converted to Christianity just within the last week. And I said back to him, it's really interesting that you think that these are important, that these are proof of something, when we have more people turn into atheism every day, at least in the United States, than you have turn into Christianity. Atheists turn into Christianity, and we have poll numbers to show it. We actually have data, but none of that counts to you. So it's like a one-sided thing,
Oh, indeed. And look, I think there was someone who said that, like, for every Anthony Flew, there are hundreds of clergy who are leaving the job as per the Clergy Project. So if you want to play argumentum ad populum, then look where the numbers are going.
Right, exactly. That's the point. And now I'm going back to Ayaan Hirsi's deconversion. It seemed to me that, like you were saying, it seemed like it wasn't really spiritually driven, that it was more culturally driven. And it seemed to me like the big part of it was, this is a better way for me to fight against Islam.
Or I suppose
kind of the idea I got out of it.
Yeah, that is more like against Islam, but also against the decay of the West. Is one way of looking at it, because there's a I don't want to go too deep into this, but basically she was saying that in the face of a resurgent China and Russia, and the billions of dollars in debt that Western governments are in, what is it that unites us? And the answer that God is dead is not good enough. Well, it's mean, like, we don't, you and I don't unite behind the fact that God is dead. I've never heard of that being a good monetary or diplomacy policy. Atheism is just a response to claims that deities exist. Right. That's all it is. And I do get annoyed by people who take it to be what it's not. It's just a claim it's a response to a claim. I'm sure that you and I will disagree on some points of politics or monetary policy or social policy or whatever, but that doesn't mean that atheism is false. It just means that, two atheists have different opinions on something.
Right.
But I suppose when you're an apologist, you look for any loophole or any flaw or any way to dismiss atheism, because you have that mindset that, okay, I have to defeat atheism. And by defeating atheism, God will reward me for being a good, loyal foot soldier.
For being a good Christian soldier. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I get it. I get that. So if I'm really interested in your podcast, and I want you to talk to me a little bit more about it.
What would you like to know?
I want to know everything about it. What has driven you to keep it going? Like, do you get a lot of feedback from it?
Look, I will have to admit that my subscriber and listener numbers are, they're not very high. And I kind of realized that making content for the purposes of generating clicks and buzz kind of makes you an opinion machine. So, yeah, I make episodes sporadically. A lot of my recent episodes have been, the last episode I released was me reading a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet that was dropped off in my letterbox. So I had my good friend, and I think you may recognize this name, Phoebe J. Rose.
Mm-hmm.
I had her on the podcast, and yeah, we dissected this particular pamphlet. I've responded to Ray Comfort's. There was a Ray Comfort video, top 10 scientific facts of the Bible, that I felt warranted a response. Yeah, there's some stuff that earlier in the year, one of the most famous Catholic priests in Australia died, and so I gave my thoughts on that as well. So,
How prevalent is the Catholic Church in Australia?
How? So what was the question again, Kelley?
How prevalent is it? Like the Catholic Church is by far the largest church in the United States. So.
Yeah. I would say fairly. It's given us a handful of prime ministers. So there are numerous Catholic public figures, but I would say that they lost a lot of their luster, in the light of what priests were caught doing to children.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in particular, about 5 to 10 years ago, there was a royal commission. And so a royal commission for non-Australians is basically like the highest form of government inquiry into something. So if the government forms a royal commission and you're called before the royal commission, you are kind of like legally compelled to, to give evidence before it and all that. So... so there was a royal commission into institutional responses to child sex abuse, and it covered things like churches, Boy Scouts, sporting clubs, and all that kind of stuff. But I think like 2/3 of people who gave evidence claimed that they were abused in a religious setting, and then like 2/3 of those claimed they were abused in an institution provided by the Catholic Church. So, okay. Yeah, they've definitely lost a lot of their luster. But look, they do have a number of charities that run in Australia. They have, I think, St. Vincent de Paul's, just trying to think, Barnardos. I think that's Catholic as well. So they do have some charities as well. And, yeah. Okay. So they are relatively big. Yeah, Good. They still have I don't know how influential... Yeah, I don't know how influential they are, but that's
okay.
Yeah, I think maybe
I'm just curious. I've never been to Australia, so I was just and you always when you see news about Australia or information about Australia, you hardly ever get that type of information. So thanks for answering.
No, well, look, you should come sometime because we are a very friendly, very sunny country. But look, we are also quite secular.
This is I didn't know. So if I come down there, I can surf on your couch, right?
Yes, you can. Cool. Yes, you have to kick me off it, but if you wanted to couch surf, yeah, that's cool. Good. But yeah, this is one of the things that I point out to Americans is that we officially have no church-state separation. the political leader of Australia is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, and the power in Parliament is vested in a figure called the Governor General. And then the Governor General is a representative of the Crown. And the Crown is currently King Charles III. King Charles III literally has his own church, which is the Anglican Church, for those who may not be aware. Yet Australia is an incredibly secular society. So, do you want more Christian? Do you want Christianity in power? Look, we literally have Christianity in power, and look at our society. You know.
You know what? We should probably start getting some calls or starting to stack up. So
I would love to get some calls.
Would you love to do that? Before
Yes.
we do, though, I want to give a shout out to our patron of the week. Every week we pick one of our patrons and throw their name up on the air. And this week it is going to be Hugh. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we would encourage you to donate too. So if you can, go to tiny.cc/PatreonTW and give us a membership. So let's I didn't want to just come right out and say give us your money.
No.
I'm trying to be nice a little bit. We have a call here from Dan. He, him from Canada. He, him Canuck, he says, from Canada.
Oh, okay. He has the same monarch as I do.
Yeah. And he says, have you seen the TED Talk Atheism 2.0? I have not. But can religion have a purpose in the theology of an atheist? Which I find a weird question. But hi, Dan. How are you?
Hey, Kelley. I'm doing pretty good. Hello, Damian. Thank you guys for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
And,
Thanks for calling.
Of course, my language is a little weird. It's years and years of church language shaping it.
No, that's good. I was just like, when you say a purpose in the theology of an atheist, because an atheist doesn't have any theology, right?
I wouldn't necessarily argue that. I mean, not having a belief in a deity doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a theology that shapes moral decisions for you.
But that's the point. We don't have a theology. There is no theology to base. We can have a view of morals, but not necessarily related to what a deity has or hasn't said.
Right, but perhaps I'm just coming at it with a misunderstanding of the terminology, and
it could. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We don't need to dwell on that, on the terminology. But I guess your question is that if you are an atheist, is there something that religion can still do for you? Would that be a good way to phrase it?
Yeah, it's more like the TED Talk was a really interesting view from an atheist talking about the church and religions as organizations that can still have positive purposes in your life. And some of it was organization around time, calendars, the importance of that. And some of it was also, while the story may not be literally real, the importance of what's being said in certain times of stories around certain times a year is important for reminding you of things that you do care about in your worldview and moral decision making.
Yep. Look, I'm going to jump, and I kind of agree with Dan in that I'm in this weird situation in that my wife and my in-laws are all believers, and I was actually in church last week. I still go to church every now and then, and that's more to just so I can spend time with my family, rather than sitting at home alone, not doing much. Sometimes I do want to spend time with my family, but I do see religion as, there is I suppose a benefit to religion in that it does bring people together. It does teach pro-social behavior. Things. There are some benefits to the Christian message. I'll say things like don't murder and don't steal and that kind of stuff, and monogamy, those kind of those pro-social behaviors. I don't have a problem with that. And like my 17-year-old daughter, she goes, and I think she gets some benefit from going to a church youth group, though I would not say she is religious in any sense. And, I'm not going to force either way, for her to make a decision, atheism, Christianity, or whatever. But, if she gets a benefit, and how can I say, if she gets a benefit and she feels comfortable and not pushing religion down her throat, not forcing her to convert at the sword or something, I don't have a problem with religion in general. I suppose my only problem with religion is where it starts to become a cult, and it starts to, make you see your family as the enemy, like those churches that say that you have to hate your family but love Christ. Like, that's where it starts to get. And like, when people use theology as an excuse to cover up bad behavior, for example, that's when religion starts to get toxic in my point of view. So, yeah. So I think just from your characterization of this TED Talk, I will probably find a lot I would agree with in that TED Talk.
I can agree that with Damien, that some of the things you mentioned are actually positives, but I can also say that all of those things can be gotten from a secular organization as well.
Correct.
And one of the problems that we have, though, is there aren't enough secular organizations to provide those services. And I think one of the things that we should really think about as atheists, if we really want to take care of other atheists and be there for other people and try to build that support group up, it's something that we should think about doing in the future, that we can build some kind of network of groups like the ACA, which is doing a great job of building a community. But building a community, I think, is probably our biggest challenge moving into the future.
Yep. Religion doesn't have the mortgage on morality. I'll say that. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just find myself in this weird part of life where religion has had a lot of my time, and I've stepped away from it, and I'm just now really trying to figure out what does have any value and what doesn't. So I find myself questioning people like yourselves for opinions that I haven't heard before.
Well, Dan, I do appreciate your willingness to be open and explore and to ask these kind of hard questions. But
they are hard,
I suppose
questions.
Yeah, and I suppose the thing I would say is that atheism isn't really meant to give you guidance. What I found as an atheist is that it's like a choose your own adventure book. And look, I'll be upfront and say that I left organized religion probably about a good 5-10 years ago, and I still struggle with the lack of purpose that I used to revolve my life around the church. I was in 3 different ministries in my church, and then when I stopped going, it's like pulling the rug out, and sometimes I still do struggle with that lack of rug, if you get. So what I look to is, my daughter is going to be an adult next year, and my other child is, only a couple of years away. So I find my purpose right now is giving them the best foundation to be, healthy, prosperous, balanced adults. Is one thing I look at for purpose.
Dan?
Those are good purposes.
Yeah. I haven't been religious for 40 years, and I don't remember ever lacking a purpose. I struggled with PTSD for the first 20 years of my adult life, and I had a hard time keeping focus to a purpose, but I never had a problem finding a purpose. So I think it's hard for people when they're leaving religion, because religion does seem so much a part of your life, and it does seem like, you know, and you're even taught this, that the reason I'm alive is to worship God, to be good with God. You know, Jesus is my guide. And with all of a sudden, when you yank that rug out from under you, you don't think you have any purpose left, but you realize life hasn't changed. Life is still the same.
Yep.
Everything that was there beforehand is still there. And even if it's just your hobby that you enjoy doing, you can still have a purpose. So
Indeed. I would say just on that, Kelley, that I think there's like there's like a duality in that your life's purpose is to placate a deity, but then also like on a day-to-day level, or sort of, I suppose on a weekly level, you know, you are also expected to give time to the church, give time and money to the church. You know, you give your tithes, but then also, you know, if you volunteer in a ministry like the music ministry, or if you're an usher or something, that time that you give is seen as credit in the eyes of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in my particular fundamentalist theology, that, you know, you were, I suppose, how can I put it? Like, you know, you were doing a good thing by giving your time to the church, i.e. God, as well. So that became like a weekly purpose as well, as rather than just like a purpose of life. Like you had that weekly purpose to keep the church going as well.
I, for myself, found a lot of social settings ended up revolving around the church and people from it, and replacing that has been difficult. And like Kelley was saying, social clubs are few and far between these days.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what the area is like. You know, the demographics of your area. I know there are some parts of Canada that are very populated and some that aren't. But if you have interests, like when I first moved to the area where I live at, I did not know anybody. I was not a member of any church. I didn't have a place like that to reach out to. But I was interested. Obviously, I'm interested in rocks and minerals, and there was a local rock group that, you know, just a club that people got together to discuss rocks and learn how to polish them and make jewelry and stuff. So I started going to that, and that became sort of like in a way, my support group. I made a bunch of new friends that way, and friends I still have 20 years later. So, I mean, there's always other places to reach out to besides a church. There, you know,
I'd say, sorry to interrupt, Kelley.
No, go ahead. I was saying, like I mentioned before, hobbies, and you can get involved with politics. That's always a good thing because you can help change
or even sporting clubs. You know, if you
sporting clubs as well.
Sorry, Dan.
It's getting involved in politics makes me laugh. I'd sooner not have a social circle than do that. But
that's fine. That's fine.
But
and, everybody has their own cup of tea, right?
Yeah, but you can join a sporting club. Like sporting clubs are very, very secular. There is almost no religion involved in a sporting. Like the ball doesn't care what deities you do or don't believe in.
I think Dan would be working with a puck, not a ball. That was a Canadian joke.
A bit of a
I figured if you had Canuck as part of your pronouns, you wouldn't mind if I made a joke.
Not in the slightest. I just wanted to ask you guys one quick question though before I go. Slightly different take. Ancient alien theory. Ancient peoples had encounters with advanced civilizations and saw them as gods. Any chance of that?
Sure, there's a chance of it. I don't think it happened though. I think we don't give enough credit to people that lived 3,000 years ago for being intelligent and being able to figure things out. Yep. I think there's a general idea that people were dumber back then because they didn't have as much science, which is true. They didn't have a large of a knowledge base to draw wisdom off of, but they were just as smart as we are. So,
yeah. Look, I actually had, as a child, I had Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods, and I grew up thinking, "Hey, this is possible. What's going on here?" Then, especially as I became a rational atheist, I read like debunk after debunk after debunk. of the book. And yeah, look, it is possible, though, to a statistically insignificant possibility is the way I look at it. Like everything we know about anthropology and ancient culture would have to change for ancient aliens to be true.
So no chance Jesus was a reptid shapeshifter.
Nah, probably not. Probably not.
Well, look, it is possible, but
Good
everything
question,
we
though.
know would have to change.
Yeah. Good question, though.
I like it. That's an interesting one.
Gentlemen, thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for calling in, Dan. I really enjoyed it.
And look after yourself.
Yeah, take care of yourself and give us a call back and let us know how you're doing, okay? All right. And so thank you so much for calling. I really do appreciate it.
Well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Ancient aliens, yeah. That's a
That's a good
very
one,
first thing was Chariots of the Gods. And yeah, I think I picked the book up
too.
for like 50. Sorry.
I went and saw the movie when it came out. So.
Oh, really? Okay. I never saw the movie.
Yeah.
But all I remember was I had the book. I bought it at a garage sale for like 50 cents or something. It's like, oh, this is interesting. And then, yeah.
Well, before we take another call, I got a couple of things I want to do. First, we have a brand new, exciting way to support the ACA. So check out this video.
Have you ever wanted to make a permanent impact on the atheist community of Austin? Help support our space for free thought by buying a custom engraved brick to be laid on the building grounds to help raise funds for improvements. Our building has stood as a beacon for years, bringing people together. But 3 years of emptiness due to the pandemic have taken a toll, leaving it in disrepair. Help us restore this hub of connection and support by buying a brick. Moses had his stone tablets, but we're doing our own version. Join our brick fundraiser and let your engraved messages stand the test of time, minus commandments. Visit tiny.cc/ACA bricks for more information.
All right. Don't be thick. Buy a brick. And just so you are aware, we are accepting super chats and we may even read them live on the air. So feel free to make us read the things that you've written, assuming they're YouTube appropriate. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by donating to our Patreon, as I mentioned before, at tiny.cc/Patreon TW. There's different tiers there, and you might get your name shouted out next week. You can also support the show by becoming a member here on YouTube. You get emojis in the chat, your name gets highlighted, you get a different color, cool green color, and you will be immune to the slow mode. And that's all for as little as 99 cents a month. And for even cheaper, for the even lower price of $0 a month, you can just subscribe. So hit the subscribe button. So let us get to our next call. And we have Mr. Maybe, him in Australia.
Oh, yes.
Follow Aussie. And he says JFK was accidentally shot by the Secret Service. Hi, Mr. Mystery. Mr. Maybe, I'm sorry. Mr. Mystery.
He's a man of mystery.
He's a man of mystery, Mr. Baby.
Hello, Kelley and Damian.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call.
Hi.
Yes, that's the theory. I thought it's coming up to 60 years now since JFK was shot. There's going to be a lot of the usual conspiracy theories going around. But this one I heard about 10 years ago when I watched a program. I live in Australia, and it was a documentary by a fellow named Colin McLaren, who was a detective in Australia here, and he was reviewing a book called Mortal Error, and basically Howard Donahue was the author, and he was a ballistic expert, and he came up with the idea through ballistics and things like that JFK, first of all, he couldn't have been shot he couldn't have been, the final bullet that pierced his brain couldn't have been from the type of bullet that Lee Harvey Oswald shot, because it was a Frangibil bullet that blew his brains out. So it had to come from something like an AR-15, which is a relatively new weapon in those days, and the Secret Service had one in the follow-up card, and there's other evidence that would support.
Why did the bullet have to come from a gun like that? I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand.
Well, if you see the, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Well, the final shot that hit JFK was an explosive bullet. His brain exploded.
It was, but they
That
found the
can't come
bullet
from
on the stretcher.
That's right. Yes.
It didn't explode
Yes,
though.
there was more than there was. No, there were 3 shots, and that was one of them.
Right. There was only one that hit him though, right?
Well, there are actually 2. I think one went through his shoulder first.
The first shot has sometimes been described as the magic bullet because it actually went through JFK's back of his neck, through his chest, through his wrist, and through Governor Connolly, and they found that bullet.
They recovered that bullet.
That wasn't the final shot.
They recovered that bullet in the car,
bullet, yeah.
did they not?
Yeah.
All right, and they recovered another bullet on the stretcher that JFK's body was on.
I think that was the same bullet.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
Listening to all that, and just my general understanding of the JFK assassination and all that, just because an expert makes a case and writes a book doesn't necessarily mean that that expert is 110% certified accurate in what they say. It's a little bit like Dr. Richard Carrier with his claims that with his argument that Jesus didn't exist. Yes, Richard Carrier is a degree qualified historian from a reputable university. He has written a book, but that doesn't necessarily mean that his claims stack up. His claims still have to go through some sort of sifting process in order to be acceptable. And so let's say that, another ballistics expert writes that, Lee Harvey Oswald had the right gun with the right bullet and, these angles all match up. You then have competing ballistics experts and competing books at 20 paces. How then do you decide, which side of the equation that you fall on?
Well, there's a lot of evidence. I think I would like. I actually sent an email to Dan on the 10th of April 2020, and he sent me a reply. And I was basically pointing out this documentary that was on TV. Now, when it first came on, this was in 2013, I just rolled my eyes and said, "Oh, here's another conspiracy theory." But what I like about this one is it's all based on facts.
Well, I suppose, Mr. Maybe, facts as per who? This is where, like, what do you mean? Like, where are you getting these facts? Where?
As per the Warren Commission. Like, for instance,
and you've read the Warren. Have you read the Warren Commission? Have you totally gone through it yourself?
No, but they on this documentary. I know it sounds tricky. Yeah,
that's all right. That's all right. Like, Mr. Maybe I will let you make your point, but if you haven't read it yourself and you're relying on a secondhand documentary that's running, making a counterclaim that backs up a conspiracy theory, I would be a little bit more hesitant to say that this documentary is based on fact, especially when you haven't read the report yourself, because it is quite possible that this documentary is cherry picking stuff, is, just revising things, exaggerating stuff. So I personally would be just a little bit more hesitant to say, I believe there was a third shooter, or there was a CIA plot or something based on a documentary on a report that you may not have read totally yourself, is where I'm coming from. I don't mean to dismiss you, but just
Yeah.
like on the like when you have.
I'm sure it's a well thought out idea that the person came up with here. I'm just wondering, I mean, if it had been a Secret Service agent that had done it, though, wouldn't we have some? You would think there'd be some kind of video evidence of it in all the video that was taken that day.
Hold on, Kelley. I don't think there was much video. There was only one. I think the Zapruder film.
I thought there was 2 or 3, but there was a lot of photographs. I agree.
The only film is the Zapruder film.
Yeah, right, the Zapruder film. But you would think that at least that somebody would have there been an eyewitness to the Secret Service agent firing their weapon,
or even some documentary evidence, of a plot.
Yes. That's in the Warren Commission too. They referenced, and I've actually looked at the Warren Commission references that they put there, and they've got people talking about the secret agent with a machine gun standing up in the car behind the car behind the main car. And the other witnesses in the Warren Commission have mentioned the smelling of smoke, and the actual wind on that day was blowing into Lee Harvey Oswald's face. And if you can smell the smoke at ground level, that says something, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I would also say, like, witnesses at a commission, like, for example, in the January 6th commission, there was I forget who exactly it was, but there was a woman who testified at the January 6th commission, said that Donald Trump tried to take the wheel of the car from the Secret Service agent, something really, really strange. And I suppose my point here is that just because a person testifies as a witness at a commission, you still need to balance the claims against the available evidence. Like a person is a witness.
That's right. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that everything they say is taken at face value or is taken into the final report as well. So just be aware of that. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. But I think, look, I'm not explaining myself very well.
No, that's good. No, I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from.
You're good. I don't expect you to have all the details.
Well, I should have. I've watched it a couple of times. But my advice would be for people to watch this video. Watch the last 6 minutes of this video. It goes for 1 hour and 26 minutes. And then if it piques your interest, go back and look through the whole lot. And they go through detailed. This fellow is a detective that goes through it like a cold case. Every single day. And
like J. Warner Wallace, by any chance?
Because who? No. It's Colin McLeod.
That's right. No, that's it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Can I just name the YouTube reference for that?
If the producers are fine with that.
It's called JFK the Smoking Gun.
Okay.
It's called JFK the Smoking Gun, and it's by News Entertainment.
Okay.
It goes for 1 hour 26 minutes. I suggest to watch the last 6 minutes of it. If you think it's interesting, go back, have a look through it, because I was rolling my eyes at the start of it, and really on the way they went about this particular investigation.
No worries. Well, look, if we have the time and the inclination.
Interestingly enough, I once saw a theory that Ronald Reagan had shot himself when he was shot.
And how did he achieve that?
He apparently used to carry a .38 in a shoulder holster all the time with him. And when the assassin showed up, he was drawing the gun out of its shoulder holster when the Secret Service men pushed him into the limo, causing the gun to show off, shooting him in the chest. So
look, that is possible in the realm of possibility space. Yes, but I
kind of mentioned it because that seems more possible to me than this JFK hypothesis.
Look, the problem with the JFK hypothesis is that there are so many. It's been so shrouded in mystery and conjecture, and the idea that it was a Russian plot, the idea that it was a mafia hit, the idea that it was. It was organized by, who's the guy who replaced Kennedy? Johnson, was it?
Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, Johnson. It was orchestrated by Johnson. It was orchestrated by the CIA. You know, stuff. There's been so much said that it's kind of hard to separate. And we also know that governments do lie, and they can lie. So, you know, it's hard to without having been there, you know, balance truth, like sift fact through fiction. But yeah, Mr. Maybe, thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah.
I am not entirely dismissive. I'll say that much.
Okay, one of the physical tests they did to show what sort of damage a gun does is they got the same type of rifle that Lee Harvey Oswald uses, and they shot it at a rock melon right through the middle. And then they got an AR-15, and they did the same thing, and the thing just exploded. Very, very similar to what happened to JFK's head. And it's, for me, it's almost conclusive that it's not the same, that the same weapon was used in all three shots.
One of the things, though, they could have changed the bullet. I mean, the bullet can make it be explosive. It doesn't have to be the rifle. A rifle can fire a bullet that's not going to be explosive or when it's going to be.
This Howard Donahue was a ballistic expert, and he said you are wrong on that.
He said I'm sorry, I'm a hunter, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not wrong on that. So.
Okay.
And
truth wanted, JFK edition.
We do have this ballistics expert putting up a theory that he's like pushing a book for, I'm assuming. So he does kind of have a vested interest in his idea being correct, right? And how many people do you know about bullets? I mean, like, probably even in the United States where guns are prevalent, probably 70% of the people don't know that about bullets.
Yeah. Well, this ballistic expert, they did a recreation of the JFK situation, and they had something running. They had the same distances and everything, and they had 11 different marksmen trying to shoot 3 shots within that certain period of time. He was the only one that was able to do it. But even he, I
saw Penn Gillette do it on his show, and he's not even a weapons expert, and he did it.
Sorry,
Penn Gillette on the show Bullshit.
The magician from Penn and Teller
did 3 shots in the amount of time, and he's not a weapons expert, and he used the Carcano rifle to do it.
Yeah, but I've also heard Jesse Ventura of all people, you know, claim that the JFK shooting was a conspiracy. And of all people, Jesse Ventura, a guy who's been in government, he would know what government conspiracy looks like because he is a famous conspiracy theorist, as well as having been a governor himself. And that makes him reputable.
Well,
so yeah, I mean, that's
and as Damian said, there's been so many hypotheses and so much information out. It's almost impossible to know what's real and what's not anymore, to be honest, with something like this. And there's just been so much mystery shrouded around it, so much conjecture about what information hasn't been released to the public yet. So it's really kind of hard. I mean, at some point they're going to release it all. We're going to have a better idea of what actually happened that day. But it just hasn't happened yet. So
yeah, but I suppose based off of the available evidence, what is the most likely scenario is the question I ask myself. You know, we have a dead president who was shot in open space. You know, we have a guy who was the alleged perpetrator who was killed before he had a chance to give his version of the story as well. Yeah, so, and we have very grainy footage. Yeah, so those are the facts that we have. And then I would say everything else from there is conjecture.
But I like the idea. Somebody actually sent me a link, so I'm going to check it out. I'm definitely going to look at it. It's something that I'm very interested in. So I appreciate you calling and letting us know about it.
Look, if something, if this changes our minds, okay, excellent. Let's see
definitely.
So we're not closed off to it. Definitely not closed off to it.
I do have a lot more calls though. So if you want to add something else right now.
No, I just like to say thanks, guys, for what you do. I like to watch the content on the atheist community, and Damien, fellow Aussie, I'll have to get in contact with you sometime.
Yeah,
look forward to it.
Thanks a lot for calling, Mr. Maybe. I really appreciate the call.
Maybe.
It was really definitely an interesting call. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Maybe.
Definitely. And we have more callers, but I also want to mention we have limited edition T-shirts. This month says that which does not kill you only makes you stronger. Except Bigfoot. Bigfoot will kill you.
Yeah.
So go to excuse me. I got a little laugh out of that. Visit tiny.cc/merch ACA and grab one of those Bigfoot T-shirts before they're gone.
Got merch.
And if you want to hear our content in audio form, you're sitting around, you're maybe at work and you're thinking, I'd like to listen to something interesting, intriguing, maybe a little bit controversial, go to tiny.cc/AEN podcast so you can get all the latest ACA shows in podcast form and enjoy that. I do it all the time when I'm working. And next we have Tim in Washington, they. And he says all holy books are claims, that he has a degree in theology and can find no basis of proof of its claims, the Bible in particular. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Kelley? Nice to talk with you. Damian, nice to meet you. I haven't heard about you before, so I'm going to look for your podcast.
I am. This is my first time on an ACA show, so I feel very honored to be here.
I feel honored to have you. I feel lucky to have you for your first time. So,
no, good. So, Tim, you've got life figured out. You have a theology degree, and you realize it's all bunk. Life goes on.
Yeah, pretty much. And I got to tell you, I'm a little upset because after I wrote this all out, the meaning of life and the purpose of us, or meaning of us being here and the purpose of life and all of that came up, and it's like, oh my God, I want to talk about that. But anyway, I have found in the last 20 years of being an atheist, I was a fundamentalist Pentecostal from the time I was 21 till 38, and then became Methodist. Yeah, I grew up in the Mormon church, and then became a Druid and realized that there isn't anything spiritual out there. We're just human beings. We're just animals on a rock, a little bit away from a star, and that's it. But I find that the stories that are in the Bible, some of them are fun to read. Some of them are very, very disturbing. Lot and his daughters. Some of them are, they're fun fan fiction, and most of them are representative, or they're very much like Homer or Virgil or any of the other epics, the Epic of Gilgamesh, for instance. So they're all stories, they're all fables, and I find that any holy book is nothing but a claim. And I love these folks that use the Bible to prove the Bible, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, that's circular. That's like me using Spider-Man comic 31 to prove Spider-Man comic 57 and prove that Spider-Man is real.
Yes.
So, we can't use that, and so yeah, it's all claims. There's no proof to what the Bible says is true.
Well, actually, no, there are some things in the Bible that are true. like, for example, Pontius Pilate was the procurator of, Judea at the time of, in the first century Roman rule. There are the Herods. There are numerous Herods. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, did go through the Middle East, conquering this, that, and the other. So I wouldn't dismiss everything in the Bible just. You don't believe that there is a deity. There are some things in the Bible that do, stack up historically. But my position is that it doesn't stack up historically because it's in the Bible. It's just more coincidental. But my take on the Bible is that it was more written by a people trying to create a cohesive society via religio-cultural mechanisms. Is the way, like, the reason why you would put pen to papyrus, for example, is that you're trying to you're trying to promote a certain idea. And given that during those times, there wasn't much, like, they didn't have governments, they didn't have courts, they didn't have, or they would have had, but maybe in very rudimentary forms. But there wasn't much to keep society together, I suppose. And I think religion and having a basal text certainly provides that foundation that you can then, try keep the masses together, I suppose, is one way of looking at it. So I'm not of the position that it's all fairy tales. And sorry, Tim.
I guess that's true, but I mean, even within Spider-Man, even though it is all fiction, I mean, it's set in New York. Spider-Man's from Queens, and Hell's Kitchen is real, and it's a part.
He's bitten by spiders, and we know spiders exist.
Daredevil. So, yeah, and so I mean, there are truths certainly, and there are things that are archaeologically and even sociologically
accurate,
real truths, accurate, I guess. But that doesn't mean that the stories themselves, I think that's what I really mean, is the stories themselves. I mean, even the Pied Piper of Hamelin was an actual village. And, but the story itself is a fable. It's nothing more than just a story, but it's based in a real place.
So let me ask you, Tim. I mean, I'm sure you've heard many Christians say use the Bible as proof that God exists. What do you think of that approach?
I usually wind up saying, well, if I'm going to use the Bible to prove that God exists, then I am going to use the Harry Potter series to prove that Hogwarts exists. And I'm going to use... well,
I was going to say, Tim, my favorite counter to Christian apologetics is to mention the Book of Mormon. And so we know that Joseph Smith existed. We know Joseph Smith was a real person. And he claims that an angel spoke to him and showed him golden plates. And we actually have the names of, I think, is it 8 or 15? I forget the exact number. We have at least 8 witnesses who have signed legal documents to say that they saw the golden plates. So is all that enough proof that there was... Yeah.
No, go ahead. Is all that enough proof to what?
Yeah, is that enough proof to prove the claims of Mormonism? That there was indeed an angel Moroni, and that, believers will become deities of other planets after they die, and that they'll go to Kolob, or I forget the exact natures of
just in the historical sense that the lost tribes of Israel ended up in North America.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
So that's actually a good thing, and that's kind of what I use because of my Mormon background. Of course, I also use Mormonism as part of a debunking to my Christian folks that talk to me
Buddies.
about it.
Yep.
And because the golden plates were never proven to exist. However, these people say that they were, and most of them were all scoundrels and liars and storytellers, including Joseph Smith, who was the biggest scoundrel and storyteller in the Palmyra area.
Though I would say that is an ad hominem
from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that Joseph Smith could be a liar and a scoundrel and a cheat, but he could still be correct that there were golden plates. So don't play the ad hominem that because Joseph Smith was a liar, that Mormonism is bunk. I would say Mormonism is bunk because of a whole lot of other things, aside from the character of Joseph Smith himself, is what I'll say to that.
Right.
I like to.
Yeah.
I like to use a hypothetical. I like to use a hypothetical about. I have a 50-page book that details you walking into a bank and robbing it. It says exactly what you were wearing. It says you were carrying a sword in one hand made by a particular forge. It says you were carrying a Sig Sauer in the other hand. It says what the teller was wearing, how many people were in the bank, how many people witnessed it. It is very, very detailed, and it says you robbed the bank. Now, is that book that I had, that 50-page book, is that proof that you robbed the bank? And that usually kind of hits home because it's more personal, you know. Right.
And thank you for that. Thank you for that check, Damian, because that is thank you. That is a very good thing for me to remember. Not to attack Joseph Smith's character as much.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, he was a scoundrel, but but yeah,
I agree. But the other thing I love about Joseph Smith, the thing I love about Joseph Smith is that he actually died defending Mormonism. So you may hear the Christian claim that, you know, the apostles wouldn't die for something they knew to be false. But the example of Joseph Smith, who was actually shot by a mob while awaiting charges for defending Mormonism, I think puts paid to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
The real interesting story behind the story of that is that he was breaking out of jail and he was shooting back. He did not die a martyr. He died an escaping convict. He and his friends were trying to get him out of jail, and the mob.
And I think his brother was also charged as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Like 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it was about 5 to 8 guys, I think, that actually were in the shootout with him. It was like the OK Corral, but it was in Nauvoo, Illinois, when that happened. So yeah, that's right. That's what I was trying to think of that name of the town. But you could deeper.
But you could make the point that Joseph Smith was arrested and was imprisoned for, you know, defending the faith. Like he wouldn't go through such trials if he knew it was a lie. Would he?
Correct. Yeah. Well, according to those who believe that Paul was imprisoned for being wrong or for being a Christian, or that Peter was crucified upside down for being a Christian. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point. And it isn't even just Mormons. I mean, people have been martyred for all kinds of different religions. And it doesn't prove that any of those religions, and I'm sure a Christian would agree that just because somebody was martyred as a Muslim doesn't mean that Islam is true. So,
right. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's I loved that question. It really got me, and it got my my theology juices going, and it's like, it's just a story.
Nice. So Tim, tell us more about your theology degree. Like, what institution, what branch of Christianity did your theology major in? Tell us more.
Okay, well, very interesting. While I am proud of my theology degree, it's an associate degree. I worked for 3 years on it. It was through a seminary that was started by the man who led me to the Lord when I was 21, and he had a PhD, and I worked 3 years for it. It was basically fundamentalist Pentecostal, and a lot of my degree was based on fighting the craziness of some of the movements, such as the shepherding movement in the 70s and 80s, the prosperity movement of the 80s and 90s, and even the laughing movement of the 90s and early 2000s.
The Toronto, you mean the Toronto movement?
The Toronto
Blessing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And a lot of the papers and the research that I did and all of that were based on all of those things, and the craziness that we get. And we kind of, the church, I say we, back then it was we, how the church kind of goes into these fads, and they're not fundamental in any way, shape, or form. They're crazy, actually, and you know, they're just fads. To be quite honest, I mean, there's nothing more or less to say.
Well, I would say that religion influences culture, and culture influences religion. It's a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this see this in the music. Like, for example, you know, if I was at church 50 years ago, we would be singing hymns. Whereas now, it's mostly there's a lot of Hillsong and like Parachute Band and Jesus culture and, you know, stuff like that that's being sung in churches.
Right. And like in the 80s and 90s, there was a huge
The Vineyard
mimicry going on. Like Striper was a hard rock band that was a long hair rock.
Yep.
We had
hair metal band
called that was
to hell with the devil.
Yeah. And we had First Call that was very close to ABBA. We had we had a lot of the mimicry bands. Sheena Easton was oh my gosh, I can't remember who.
To be fair, though, even that happens outside of religion too, right? I mean, look how many bands copied the Beatles, right? And that weren't religious. Right. That's what I'm saying. To be fair, that's what pop culture does.
Yeah, but culture is like this big whirlpool of ideas.
People in. Yeah, and it was to bring folks in, the young folks, into the church in the 80s and 90s, because they were supposed to stop listening to that secular devil music that is nothing about sex and drugs, nothing except sex and drugs, and bring them in.
So it was a Christianized.
So they
Christianized it.
Right. Yeah. And very same sounds, even very same chord progressions, maybe even some of the same versions, only Christianity.
Play the chord sideways and change the lyrics, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And pray before the show.
So that was a lot of what my degree was about. It was about really going into the text of the Bible, and that was probably my downfall as a Christian, because as I studied the Bible, the more I studied, the more I realized this is really ridiculous. Why do I believe this? What this is teaching isn't even what I'm living, and what this is teaching isn't really all that good. I could be a non-Christian and live life so much better than what I'm living now, because I would be accepting people for who they are rather than shunning people because they are. Because
of a theological presupposition.
So, yeah.
Tim, I think my story is a lot like yours, except I don't have a theology degree.
Yeah.
I don't either. But a theology degree to really read the Bible and understand it.
No. But having said that, I am fascinated with like the text behind the Bible and like various interpretations behind that. And yeah, I think this is an area of study. So one of my best friends is a Jewish convert, and I get a lot of information out of him. It's fun. It's fun.
This was a great call, Tim. I appreciate you calling in. I am running out of show, and I still got a couple calls to get to. So I want to thank you for calling.
Thank you, Tim.
And I want you to feel free to call back again.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you. No, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And if you happen to be in the Austin area this week, November 19th, 2023, then join us for live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience at the Free Thought Library. Talk Heathen will be hosted by Christy Powell, Forrest Falkai, and Jamie Boone. And the Atheist Experience will be hosted by Forrest Falkai and Jamie the Blind Limey. Doors open at noon, and we hope to see you there. And speaking of Jamie the Blind Limey, we have a super chat from him. $5 from Blind Limey, and it says, viewers, pay attention to Kelley's tie. He will go through different knots until he masters the forbidden knot, and in doing so, usher in Armageddon. So I'm hoping I don't do that. So, but
what a way to end a show! Like Armageddon suddenly happens. All right, guys, we've got to go. We're being raptured.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? We do have a couple more calls I want to get to. Let's go for one more here. This is from Coop, they, them in New York. What is sophistry and why is it not okay? And is there ever a good time for it? So, hi, Coop. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Kelley? How you doing, Damian? How you doing, guys?
Good.
Hello.
Well, thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you need a definition of sophistry or?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I didn't look it up, so I was going to look it up, but I thought I would just get it from you guys.
It would be. Go ahead. You want to go, Damien?
Yeah, I was going to say, sophistry to me basically means an elaborate web of lies, half-truths, deceptions. That would be like when someone says sophistry, that to me is what,
with the intention of lying, of deceiving somebody, building a whole web of lies with the intention of actually trying to deceive someone.
Because I would say, like, the idea of Santa Claus is Santa Claus an idea of sophistry that we use as a positive moral reinforcement mechanism for our kids.
Yeah, I would say so.
Is planning a surprise? Is lying to your friend to plan a surprise birthday party a form of sophistry?
Gee, I don't. I mean, I'd say that's in question. I'm just getting. Like I said, I mean, I didn't know the definition of sophistry. I just I thought it was like had something to do with philosophy and knowledge but twisting it and making it sound all fancy and fluffy and not really getting to the truth of what those words actually mean.
I'd agree. Like, I think we're both looking at the same thing, just from different sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Kelley, do you agree with Damian, Kelley?
Yeah, and I don't. And I'm going to go on to answer that second the why is it not okay? It would be okay if you think the ends justify the means. I don't. I don't think it's ever right to lie to somebody. I don't think it's ever right to deceive somebody. When they find out that you've done that, they're going to turn against you. So there's no reason why you should ever use that as a tool to gain somebody's trust. Is there ever a good time for it? Right. No, never.
Yeah. If you don't mind, if I'd like to just ask one more question about atheism, because Kelley, you are an atheist. If I'm wrong, correct? If I'm right.
Yes, yes, I am. Yeah, I do use the atheist
Damien, I
label.
don't know how you like. Are you, Kelley? Are you? I don't know where you fall in atheism, Damien, but you can comment on this if you'd like. Of
Sure.
course, it's not my show. So, but like, Kelley, are you an atheist because of the contradictions in the Bible where God says, I am God and I do both good and evil. I do both good and bad, and I create both good and evil, and like,
No,
and all these different things.
My atheism goes beyond the Bible, because I don't believe that any God is, we have an unambiguous definition of any God. And that's one of the problems is that we have all these different gods that people think exist, and they're all different gods. That's my problem. And even people who believe in the same God, even people who go to the same church, who are sitting right next to each other in the pew, often don't have the exact same definition of what they believe God is. And that's why I'm an atheist.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to I'm starting to go to the extent of like accepting atheism as well, which I think is helping my deconstruction process. Like I'm looking into atheism and I'm starting to see how it could help my deconstruction process big time.
Coop, I would. This is one question that kind of pushed my deconversion along, and it's this: if you didn't have the Bible or the church, how would you prove God exists?
Well, if I didn't have the church or the Bible, I certainly couldn't say it was tradition, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of Catholics will go back and they'll say they believe because of their tradition.
Okay, but that doesn't say the thing is true. That's just more of a cultural. Right. That's like an Ayaan Hirsi Ali conversion story.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know. I can't answer that question. I suppose I would have no basis for belief whatsoever at that point.
Bingo. I think you've that's the question that kind of drove me. And I think if you can't honestly answer that question, I think you've kind of I think you've realized something.
Yeah. And I'm just it's the one thing about deconversion, and I've been talking a lot on this show about it, and the one thing about deconversion. And now and I just like to, put a plug in for RFR, Recovering from Religion. Yeah. More than just their call-in agents that do such a great job at helping people along and meeting them where they're at. Mm-hmm. They have these great support groups that people can go to on Zoom. Yep. That last about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And like you can just talk about anything. There are people who still believe in God. There's people who are meso-theists. There are people who believe in a higher power, but trying to deconvert from religion per se, and not sure where they're at. It's just it's great. It's great for a community.
It's a really good organization. I actually started out as an atheist volunteer at the RFR, and they are really, really an excellent organization. And they have helped so many people that they really deserve more credit than they get. So I agree with you.
They do, yeah. Well, guys,
all right,
thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Coop. I was just going to ask you if you had anything else for us, but thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have a great night.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. And you can go to atheist-community.org. And you can get printable flyers that, with permission, you can put up on community bulletin boards so that people know to call this show or the other shows and defend their faith. Keith C. sent us a picture, or he posted one in a Panera. There's the flyer. I'm not sure if the Panera picture will go up. If it does, that's cool. And you can email us at truthwanted@atheist-community.org, or you can reach out to the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org. And as always, you can go to our website and see what the ACA is up to, because we actually do get up to things. So
Yes.
you can go
Yep.
to the atheist-community.org to check out the website. And there is also a Facebook group. It's run by fans for fans. So go to tiny.cc/FBTWG and you can interact with other fans. You can also do that on the fan run Discord server. And I have one more call here. We're going to talk to Rich, him from New York. And he says, when leaving religion, people mostly have been brainwashed to believe they have no purpose, causing psychological struggles. And I am going to agree with that. Hi, Rich. How you doing?
All right. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. I've been out of Christianity. I grew up in a very religious family. I've probably been out of Christianity for 35, 40 years. And as I listen, I realize I listen to the language of my family. I listen to the language of other people, very devout Christians. And Christianity makes you feel like you don't have the ability to make a purpose. And you end up in this place where your mind is so screwed up, even though you get away, you don't believe, you don't have the coping mechanisms. Many people just don't have it. They have been gaslighted so many years. I mean, I listened to my family. Someone, like example, one of my family members became a doctor. No one said to them, "Congratulations for your hard work." It was all about God blessing her with this gift of being a doctor. And I started listening to how perverse this language is. And that's what I see happening in people saying they don't have community and stuff like that. But the world is mostly, there's 1,000 things you can do out here secularly. From going to concerts to going to events, bookstores. Life is full of things to do. But when you have been kept in this insular place where you've been told that you have to be part of a group that has meaning, you don't know which way to go. But life is full of things. And it's sad to watch it and listen to it.
I think part of the problem too is that religions kind of like push the fact that they have the monopoly on this type of thing. You can go to another club. You can go to like the Rock and Gem Club in my case, right? But they're not going to be able to provide you with what we can provide you with. And I think that's the dangerous problem, is that they're like the church convinces you that there is something that you can get from them that you cannot get from anywhere else. And I think we all know that that isn't true, that everything you can get from a church, you can get somewhere else. Damien, do you have any response?
Yeah, I would tend to agree, though in my personal experience, because Australia is a lot more secular, we don't quite have that level of toxic fundamentalism. Like, it certainly does exist, and I was a part of it. I was in its orbit, though our society is not quite saturated to the point where, like, if someone said, like, if someone became a doctor, you would definitely say, "Congratulations on becoming a doctor. Your hard work is paid off." We wouldn't say, "Thank God for the skills that you got to become a doctor." So it's
constant gaslighting, and I find it sad to watch my family members, these younger family members, who are accomplishing so much and not getting credit for it because it's perversely given through the grace of God and shit like that. And it just incenses me, and I'm the one who's always saying, it's amazing how diligent you've been and all the work and your commitment and all that, but they won't. I don't think they mean to do this to them. I don't think they're doing it on purpose.
Probably because they were raised that way as well.
That's part of the problem too, is that when these people perpetuate these lies, right? Because a lot of it is just lies, they truly believe it, and to them it is not a lie, it is the truth. And that's why it's one of the reasons it's so hard to fight back at it, is because people are so convinced that they are so right. And even if they don't have any proof, it's still been pounded into their head since they were a child that this is what the world is. Yeah. And it can be really shocking when you have that rug pulled out from underneath your feet and you realize that isn't what the world is.
Yep.
And just touch on another subject real quick. The Hirsi Ali situation, I think we're giving her too much air. So what?
Okay.
Who cares? I think we're placing too much importance on keeping every player in the game. Like this somehow, we almost, in a perverse way, almost of defending ourselves because she left. And why are we doing that? Why are we doing that?
I think it's, we're allowed our opinion. And look, the only reason I brought it up was because I was at a church service last Sunday and it was brought up.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you're defending it, but I'm finding all over the news. I mean, even Seth did an entire show on it tonight, and I understand that she left, but I read about 2 minutes of the article and says, okay, so what? But to your point, I can guarantee you, for every one that leaves atheism to go to the church, there's 500 leaving the church to come to atheism. So I think we need to try to keep it in perspective.
Oh, look, definitely. I've got some perspective about it, but I think it's also interesting that, in the last couple of weeks, it has been a talking point on Christian social media. I woke up on Sunday morning, and I saw all over Twitter, an atheist has seen the light, and that's why I said that Ayaan Hirsi Ali has become the new Anthony Flew. And look, you're always going to get these, and I think it's good. Yeah, and I think it's good to, stand up and use your voice so that there is some alternate commentary that is more balanced and more rational and takes a step back and goes, well, look, hey guys, this isn't quite what it's cracked up to be,
Right. I think you're right in that sense. In that sense, you're right. They're using it as a propaganda win.
Mm-hmm.
As a cudgel, I would say almost as a cudgel.
A better word for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Goes back to my pounding it into your head, right?
Does that speak to their insecurity? That they need this win.
Correct.
But I'll let you guys get
or it speaks to their indoctrination, one of the two.
Right. Okay, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Well, thank you. Thanks. That was a great call, Rich. I really
Rich.
appreciate you calling. That was awesome.
Yep.
And
okay.
And we were a few minutes over. We did pretty good. We didn't go too far over. We did all right. So, have you ever said to yourself, I really love the content the ACA creates, but I wish there was a way that I could get it all the time? All the time. You can. You can actually do it all the time. You can go to YouTube, and we have 24/7 live streams. AXP TV delivers a constant stream of clips and shows from 26 years of the atheist experience. And now Heathen TV is showing clips from Talk Heathen. So you can watch or just simply listen to your favorite host, discover some of the old hosts that maybe you didn't know about. Visit tiny.cc/AXPTV or tiny.cc/Heathen TV to join in the fun. And I want to thank Damian for being here because you were freaking awesome. So we're gonna seriously, I had a lot of fun with you here today. Where can our audience find you to learn more about you?
Okay, I seem to have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies, but the most there I am there. Yes, so I am the host of the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. That's an embarrassing photo up there. I do have a book called The Best Religion for the Task at Hand, which kind of discusses creationism versus secular humanism. I am also found on a politics podcast called Let's Save the Governor General that I do with Phoebe J. Rose and a lovely lady called Clancy. And I'm also found on Wrestling with Atheism, where me and my best buddy Josh, we discuss wrestling related topics.
Well, one thing we have in common is I love working with Phoebe. She's awesome. I really
Cheers.
have a lot of fun with her. She's a Michigander now too, so just like me.
Yes.
And thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Stick around, everyone. We're going to go to Discord for a little bit of an after show. Join us there at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And I want to thank the backup host, Infidel64, did a bang up job today of just hanging out. And last but not least, I want to shout out to the real wizards of the show, the people who actually do the magic. Let's see the crew cam, bring it up. Look at them. There they are.
Yay.
There's the great people who actually make this show happen. And actually, I just come in and I don't even look good. I just come in and they actually make me look good. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. And remember, we want the truth. The prompt for this week is invent the curse. Comment on the video in the comments below, not in the YouTube chat. And your comment may be read on the air next week. So tune in at the beginning of the episode to find out if yours was one of the top 3 answers. And that is pretty much it for tonight. I want to thank you all for coming. I'm your host, Kelley Laughlin. And as always, keep wanting the truth. Good night, everyone.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.